All right. So we have just finished Act Three of Macbeth, and we're about to start Act Four. So we're pretty well into the play at this point. We found out at the end of Act Three that Hecate, who's the queen of all witches, was a little bit mad at the rest of the witches for not inviting her in on their activities with Macbeth. She thinks Macbeth is super selfish at this point. He really doesn't deserve any more attention. But she thought it would be really funny for them to come up with this really good plan to create some illusions for Macbeth that make him feel super safe. Because what do people do when they feel super safe? They let their guard down, right? So, right after that, we hear Lennox talking. And we know because he's being super sarcastic, he's going over everything that's been happening in Scotland, that he knows something is awry. He knows that things have been played pretty foully in Scotland as of late. And he even calls Macbeth a tyrant. So we know that the people of Scotland are not happy with Macbeth right now. We know Macbeth is being super selfish to the point that they have sent Macduff to England to get Malcolm to come back. The only way at this point that they can overthrow Macbeth is to have Malcolm come back. Malcolm is the person that is supposed to be king right now, but they know that he's not just going to walk into Scotland and take over the kingship. They know that there's going to be a fight. So they need the English army to come as well. Things are bad in Scotland right now. People don't have food. People aren't sleeping. Macbeth's killing people left and right. So things are not good. They need Malcolm to come back. But we also know that Macbeth is very paranoid. So he told us at the end of Act Three that he needs to go see the Weird Sisters again. He needs to know what his future looks like. And Act Four, I call it, it's all about illusion. It really is about seeing things one way and perceiving them a different way. So when he gets there, again, it shows how selfish Macbeth truly is. He tells those witches, I don't care what you do. You can create tidal waves, you can create winds that blow down the whole neighborhood, churches, do whatever you need to do, but I need to know about my future. I need to know what's going to happen to me. So again, it's kind of an analogy to what's going on in Scotland right now. It's all about Macbeth. He doesn't care that Scotland's falling apart and going awry. It's all about him and his safety at this point. So he said, okay, we can do that for you. So a first apparition or a very fancy ghost appears. So this is the first premonition that they tell him, beware of Macduff, beware of the Thane of Fife. So the ghost looks like it says a bloody armed head, but they mean with armor. So it's a bloody head with armor on it. So they're like, be very careful of Macduff. The second apparition is a bloody child. Okay. So the next one tells him, though, that no child, born of a woman shall harm Macbeth. So in other words, any person born normally of a woman can never hurt you. And he's like, well, that's great news. So he's thinking, so Macduff can't really do anything to me. So that's kind of ambiguous, a little equivocation there. But he's like, okay, I feel a little bit better. But his paranoia is kicking in, right? So even after the second premonition, immediately he says, I'm killing him anyway. Like, I don't care. Like they told me to beware of Macduff. Even though they said that no woman born of man can hurt me, Macduff is done. He's done. I'm going to kill him. So then the third apparition comes. This is the third premonition. Really strange one. So this one looks like a child crowned with a tree in its hand. And it says, Macbeth shall never be vanquished, which means defeated, until Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. Okay, think about that. Dunsinane Hill is his castle. Birnam Woods are just the woods surrounding his castle. So they're telling him unless the woods move towards his castle, he's completely safe. And Macbeth again is thinking, well, trees are rooted in the ground. That never can happen. So apparently, as long as I have these woods around my castle, no one can ever defeat me. So he's pretty satisfied at this point. He's feeling pretty good. But wait, one last thing. He really needs to know if Banquo's children are ever going to be king. He said the witches tell him, show his eyes and grieve your heart, because all of a sudden 8 kings appear. And the last one is holding a glass, which is a mirror into the future, and Banquo's at the end. Macbeth says this sight just hurts his eyes, like the descendants go on forever. And again, he's plagued with this idea that he has done all of this for Banquo. He's never going to reap the benefits. He doesn't have children. And this idea, again, of him being childless really, really plagues him. So right after that, the witches disappear, and Lennox comes to take Macbeth to his next appointment, and Macbeth is acting crazy yet again. Is this so unusual? Not really. Remember the banquet? He acted really strange there too. Immediately asks Lennox, did you see those witches? He's like, no, sorry, I didn't see the witches. But he thinks that Macbeth is mentally ill at this point. Lennox tells Macbeth that Macduff has fled to England, so Macbeth knows that he's there. So he's like, this is amazing. I can seize his castle, kill everyone there, and that first premonition I don't have to deal with. So the beginning of scene 2 is Lady Macduff and Ross speaking, and Lady Macduff is super mad. She just doesn't understand why Macduff has left she and her children in the castle unguarded in this really, really dangerous time. She has no idea. Macduff didn't tell her. He doesn't want her having a lot of information because she thinks the information might put her in danger. So she's just really confused. She even compares it. She's like, even the littlest bird, a wren, is going to defend an owl if it comes after his family. It's unnatural for a man to leave his family when they are in danger. Ross is defending Macduff to the best of his ability, and this whole idea of being a traitor or who is a traitor comes up. And here's where this equivocation comes in, this ambiguous talk. She thinks her husband is a traitor for leaving the family, for leaving them, unattended during this dangerous time, when in fact, he's going after the most treacherous traitor of all time, Macbeth, right? He's going to get Malcolm to come back and hopefully restore Scotland to the great stance that it once had, but they need Malcolm to come back in order to do that. So she kind of starts this really playful little conversation with her son, and she says, your father's no longer around, he's dead, what are we going to do? It's just kind of like a little conversation, a kind of dark and daunting conversation she's having with her son. But he says, we'll get by, don't worry about it. And she explains to her son that all traitors are liars and swearers, and they must be hung by the honest men. Her son's pretty smart and pretty back and forth with his mother. And he explains to her, then the liars and swearers are fools. Because there are liars and swearers enough to beat the honest and hang them up. So what's he saying? He's like, there's very few honest people, Mom. So like, if that were true, the liars and swearers of the world would take over. Think Macbeth, the Thane of Cawdor, Lady Macbeth. It's this idea of, can we stay on the good side or the dark side? It's how the whole entire play starts with Banquo, Macbeth, prophecies. Can we stay good in the midst of wanting something, right? So right about then, they're having this little conversation, Lady Macduff and her son. A messenger comes and warns Lady Macduff, that their family is in danger. Danger is encroaching. They have to get out of there. But she says, I haven't done anything. Why do we need to get out of here? But then she remembers that sometimes the bad are rewarded and the good are in danger. Think of Macbeth and Banquo here, right? He does all this horrible stuff. He's rewarded. Banquo is a good guy and he gets killed. So again, it's this equivocation. It's thinking about ideas in different ways. The murders come and they kill Macduff's son and then proceed to kill his wife and everyone in the castle. I put this little animation here because this is usually one of the most famous lines in Macbeth. What, you egg? And he stabs him. They call son Macduff an egg here. So yeah, Macbeth is probably at his most treacherous. He has sunk now to kill women and children, which that type of death, man to man combat, not great. Killing in that circumstance, obviously, murder, death is never good. But once you cross the line and you start killing women and children, then it's a whole nother level of evilness. And that's where Macbeth at this point has stooped into.